Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. Today we are going to present about The Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde. Before we start our presentation, let me introduce ourselves first. My name is Nur Alia binti Muhammad Rawi, dikasihkan call me Alia.
Hi, my name is Nur Nabila binti Ahmad Zaini.
Hi, my name is Din Arisa binti Muhammad Faiz.
Hi, my name is Nur Al-Ainis Akmal binti Osman. You guys can call me Ainis.
My name is Raja Umar Hatab bin Raja Muhammad and you guys can call me Raja.
So today I would like to introduce a short story titled The Happy Prince. This story was written by Oscar Wilde, an Irish writer, and published in 1888. The Happy Prince is a moral story that focuses on kindness and sacrifice. It tells us that helping others can bring true happiness and that small acts of generosity can make a big difference in people's lives. The story also highlights social inequality. Many people in the city are suffering, yet their struggles are often ignored by the rich. Through the story, we learn the importance of compassion and noticing the needs of others around us.
Now I'm going to talk about the plot and the fretex triangle. The plot of The Happy Prince is about a statue and a swallow who show kindness and sacrifice to help the poor. The Happy Prince gives away his gold and jewels, while the swallows help him even though it costs his life. The story shows that true happiness comes from helping others. Fretex triangle in The Happy Prince begin with the exposition, where the Happy Prince statue is introduced. He stands high above the city and can see the suffering of poor people. A swallow also arrives and stops to rest at the statue while traveling to Egypt. The rising action happens when the prince asks the swallows to help the poor. The swallow delivers the prince ruby, sapphires, and gold to people in need. Even though winter is coming, the swallow stays to help, showing kindness and sacrifice. The climax occurs when the swallows give away the prince's last eye. The prince becomes blind, but this moment shows the greatest act of love and generosity in the story. Next, the following action shows the result of their sacrifices. The weather becomes colder, the swallows grows weak and dies, and the prince's heart breaks. Finally, the resolution happens when the statue is pulled down, because it is no longer beautiful. However, God chooses the swallow and the prince's heart as the most precious thing, teaching that true happiness comes from kindness and helping others.
So now I'll talk about the setting of place. The setting of place refers to where the story takes place. In The Happy Prince, the story is set in a city. The Happy Prince is a statue placed high above the city, which allows him to see the lives of the people living below him. The city settings is important because it clearly shows different social classes. In the city, there are rich people who live in comfort, while at the same time, there are poor people who suffer from poverty and hardship. Because the prince is positioned high above the city, he can see both the beauty and the ugliness of city lives. Oscar Wilde chose a city instead of a quiet place like a village because a city shows strong contrast between rich and poor. This makes the theme of social inequality, kindness, and responsibility clearer and more powerful. The next one is the setting of time. The setting of time shows when the story happens, such as the year or period. In The Happy Prince, no exact time or year is mentioned. Oscar Wilde does not include any real historical events, so the story has timeless setting. These timeless settings help make the story's message real. The problem in the story, such as poverty, suffering, and inequality, can happen at any time. These problems happen in the past, still happen today, and may happen in the future. Because of this, readers from any time can understand and relate to the story. If Oscar Wilde used a specific time period, the message would only fit that time. By using a timeless settings, the story stays relevant and meaningful for all generations.
So let's continue the character and the characteristic of The Happy Prince. So the first character is the compassionate. The happy prince is compassionate because he feels deep sadness when he sees the suffering of the poor people in his city, even after he is dead. He also says, "Now that I'm dead, they have set me up here so high that I can see all the ugliness and all the misery of my city. Yet I cannot choose but weep." This shows that he cares deeply about people's sufferings and feels emotional pain when he sees it. The second one is self-sacrificing. The happy prince is self-sacrificing because he gives away everything he has to help others, even though it destroys his own beauty. He also said, "Plough out my other eyes and give it to her." Later, leaf by leaf of the fine gold, the solar picked it off till the happy prince looked quite dull and grey. This proves that he is willing to lose his eyes and gold so that poor people can survive. The second character is the swallow. The swallow is loyal because he stays with the happy prince instead of flying to Egypt. Even though the weather is cold, he says, "I will stay with you one night longer." The story also says he would not leave the prince because he loved him too much. This shows that he chooses loyalty and friendship over his own safety. The swallow is also kind-hearted because he helps poor people even though he does not know them and gains nothing in return. In text, he says, "Then he flew round the beds, fanning the boys' forehead with his wings." He also said, "I feel quite warm now, although it is so cold." This shows that helping others makes him feel happy and warm inside. The third character is the poor seamstress. The poor seamstress is hardworking because she continues sewing dresses even when she is very tired. In the text, her face was thin and worn, and she had coarse red hands and all pricked by the needles. This description shows that she works long hours under difficult conditions. Next, she also suffering because she is poor and cannot properly care for her sick child. In the text also say, her little boy was lying ill in bed. She had nothing to give him but river water. This shows her difficult life and the pain she faced as a mother. The last one is the town official mayor and councillors. The town officials are proud because they admire the statue only for its beauty. In the text say, "He is as beautiful as the weathercocks," say one of the town councillors. This shows that they care more about appearance than kindness. So, next, they are initiative because they do not value the prince's sacrifice and ignore the suffering of the poor. Also said in the text, "As he is no longer beautiful, he is no longer useful," said the mayor. So they pulled down the statue of the happy prince. This shows that they do not understand compassion or selfness. Through these characters, Oscar Wilde teaches us that true goddess comes from kindness and sacrifice, not wealth or appearance.
So next, I will talk about the conflict in the Happy Prince. The first is the internal conflict within the Happy Prince himself. Although he looks happy and beautiful on the outside, he feels sadness when he sees the suffering of the people in the city. When he was alive, he lived comfortably and did not understand poverty. Now, as a statue, he experiences emotional pain because he can see hunger and sadness everywhere. The second is the external conflict between the little bird and nature. The bird faced cold winter weather and should fly to Egypt to survive. However, he chose to stay with the happy prince to help deliver jewels and gold to the poor, even though it puts his life at risk. This shows the struggle between survival and kindness and teaches us about selflessness and empathy.
Now, I'm going to explain the point of view used in The Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde. The story is written in third-person limited omniscient point of view. This means the narrator is not a character in the story, but they can tell us the thoughts and feelings of certain characters. For example, the narrator tells us that the happy prince felt sorry for the poor people. This shows that the narrator understands the prince's inner emotions, not just what he does on the outside. However, the narrator does not know everything about every character. Instead, the story mainly focuses on the thoughts and feelings of the happy prince and the swallow. We learn about the swallow's thoughts, and emotions, especially his struggle between staying in the city for warmth and helping the happy prince. Because of this point of view, readers are able to emotionally connect with the characters and understand their sacrifices and kindness more deeply.
In The Happy Prince, Oscar Wilde used the third-person limited omniscient point of view. This means the narrator is not a character in the story. The narrator tells the story from outside and knows the thoughts and the feelings of the happy prince and the swallow. For example, we know the prince feels sad when he sees the suffering of the poor. We also understand how the swallow feels when he wants to fly to Egypt but chooses to stay and help. This point of view helps reader connect emotionally with the characters. It shows their kindness, sacrifice, and responsibility. In conclusion, The Happy Prince uses third-person limited omniscient point of view because the narrator knows the feeling of the happy prince and the swallows, even though the narrator is not part of the story. This makes the message about kindness and helping others clearer and more meaningful.
Now, let's move to the theme of the story. The first theme is selfless kindness. Selfless kindness means helping others without expecting anything in return. In the story, the happy prince and the swallow show selfless kindness by sacrificing their comfort and leave to help the poor. The prince gives away his gold and jewels, even though it destroys his beautiful appearance. The swallow stays behind to deliver this gift instead of flying to a warmer place. We can look from the story where the prince said, "Leaf by leaf of the fine gold I must give to my poor." This shows that true kindness requires sacrifice. The prince helped others not for praise or reward, but because he cannot ignore the suffering around him. Through this theme, the writer teaches us that real kindness is shown through action, not wealth or appearance. The next one, we have true happiness. True happiness means finding joy not in wealth or luxury, but in helping others. At the beginning, the prince seems happy because he is covered in gold and jewels. However, he only feels true happiness when he helps the poor and suffering people in the city. Even after losing everything, he becomes morally happier than before. We can look from the story where the prince said, "Now that I am dead, they have stripped me of everything." Oscar Wilde used this theme to criticize society, believe that happiness comes from riches. The story reminds the reader that true happiness comes from compassion and love for others. After exploring the main themes of the story, we can now look at the literary devices Oscar Wilde used to convey this message. One of the literary devices used is symbolism. When we say symbolism, it means an object or element in a story represents a deeper meaning beyond its literal sense. In The Happy Prince, the gold and jewels on the prince's body symbolize wealth and materialism. This can be seen when the prince says, "Take it off piece by piece and give it to my poor." As the gold is removed, the prince loses his physical beauty, but this symbolizes his growing moral goodness. Oscar Wilde used this symbolism to show that true value lies in kindness and sacrifice, not in wealth or outward appearance. Besides that, we have situational irony. Situational irony refers to a situation where the outcome is opposite of what is expected. In the story, the statue is called the Happy Prince, yet he is deeply sorrowful when he sees the suffering of the poor. This irony is shown when the eyes of the happy prince were full of tears. It is ironic because someone named Happy is actually unhappy. Wilde used this irony to criticize society, suggesting that those who appear joyful or successful may be blind to real suffering. Last one, we have imagery. Imagery is the use of descriptive language that appeals to the reader's senses, especially sight. Oscar Wilde used strong visual imagery to show poverty in the city. For example, white faces of hungry children with sad eyes. This imagery allows readers to clearly picture the suffering of the poor, creating an emotional response. By doing this, Wilde encouraged readers to feel sympathy and reflect on social inequality. In conclusion, Oscar Wilde used literary devices to highlight important themes of kindness and true happiness, reminding readers that compassion is more valuable than wealth.
And conclusion, The Happy Prince is a meaningful story that teaches us about kindness, sacrifice, and true happiness. The prince, who once lived a comfortable life without knowing suffering, learns the reality of people's pain after becoming a statue. This change made him willing to give up his beauty and wealth to help the poor. The little bird also represents loyalty and compassion by choosing to stay and help others, even when it risks its own life. Through their action, the story shows that true happiness does not come from being rich or admired, but from caring for others and making sacrifice for those in need. It also highlights social inequality in society and reminds us to be more aware of the suffering around us. So overall, The Happy Prince encourages us to be kinder, more helpful, and more compassionate in our daily life. That's all from us. Thank you, everyone.